Warning: the United Nations and the banks are conspiring to take your assets. Yes, even the ones you own outright. But how will they do this? So, if you're new to the channel, welcome to CryptoCurrent. I'm your host, CryptoRick. And today we're going to be discussing the Great Taking. How the banks and the United Nations plan to take your assets. Yes, all of it. So without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So just some legal disclaimers. This is not meant to be legal or financial advice, either implied or insinuated. Discuss with your own legal or financial practitioner on how to protect your own assets. This video does not imply, insinuate, or suggests that you have in any way to set up any particular structures to avoid UN acquisitions. It's only for entertainment purposes, based on the decodes and the riddles by Mr. Poole, and it's basically for fun purposes. Scenarios are hypothetical and speculation only. So this information is partly derived from the book and the documentary The Great Taking, about a bank scheme to basically take all your wealth through various secret laws, secret things that have been passed, and we'll discuss more about that, but it's a good reference point to watch the documentary and or read the book. So suppose a global crisis were to happen, let's say a World War III, and global martial law was to occur. What would happen to national property and sovereign rights? Do they become suspended for a time being? And does your property become governmental property or common property? Now, a lot of people will say that's not going to happen, but think about it. If a lot of people are looting and stealing and damaging property, the government could easily pass a rule to say, well, to protect your house, for the time being, we're going to make it our property. So that way, if anyone touches your house, they're actually damaging government property and they have the right to be arrested. Another scenario is, suppose an EMP pulse were to occur and all the records of ownership were wiped out. If there's mass looting, what happens again to your property rights? Where's the deed to your car? It's on a computer, on a registry, with the road and maritime services or equivalent, right? You may hold a piece of paper, but piece of papers, as you know, can be forged, and so usually there's a central point of reference point. If that reference point is destroyed through a global EMP, you technically no longer own that car. But there are more things to it. If all the banks default and your house deed is under the possession of the bank, what happens to your house? So we know that when you have a mortgage, and most people have a mortgage, most people don't own their house outright, that is not your possession, it's the bank's possession. They hold the deed until you pay it back in full. If a global bankruptcy were to occur with the banks then by default seize your house and you no longer own that house. Even if you own the house outright, the deed of that house, again, same thing. It's actually now being corresponded to electronic ownership. And even if you're given a physical deed to the house, if there is no corresponding central authority to verify that you own that house, or that gets wiped out, you technically may hold a forged document. You may hold a document they may no longer recognize. Your property ownership goes up in smoke. In Australia, the government sneakily passed what they call bail-in laws, which is, in the event of a financial crisis, this law gives authority for banks to seize your deposits to repay creditors. And essentially, instead of the government bailing them out, they get bailed in. Interestingly, most people will counter and say that this doesn't apply because of FDIC insurance or the insurance up to $250,000 per account. But what happens if the government goes broke itself and is unable to honor that FDIC insurance? People will say that the trust or the money that's in that account, the FDIC insurance, is separate to the government. Well, all the subsidiaries, if there's a chain reaction, all those subsidiaries end up going bankrupt. We also know that the amount allocated to the insurance does not weigh up the scenario where every house goes, every bank account goes under. So it's, I think they were saying that in America, if all the banks were to collapse, the FDIC insurance would cover up to 8% of all accounts, but it would not cover 100% of the population's money. Furthermore, we know that a gold buyback order was issued in 1933, where all persons, notice the legal word, all persons, so no one was accepted to basically surrender their gold and make them buy it back at a cheap price prior to them evaluating it. What happens if another gold and silver buyback order was initiated? This would basically mean that they rob you of even your hedged assets, that you hedged yourself from the incoming disaster. But the problem is that the new collateral is not gold, so it's basically everything. It's securitization of debt. So as an example, and this is referenced in the book The Great Taking, let's say you own a car. You bought the car and you paid back every single cent. Now you've got the deed to the car. You might think you're safe, but you're not. The reason is, when this car dealership, who's got hundreds and thousands of cars, when they put their collateral on paper to give out car loans or to even fund their business, your car was actually part of their collateral. So when the bank of the car dealership tries to reclaim the assets in the case of a bankruptcy, the bank and or the car dealership may come back to you and ask you for your car even if you've paid it off, because it's part of their collateral, right? So in the sense, every asset on planet Earth becomes the asset of somebody else because of this concept of collateralization. But it's not gold, it's debt and other basically all securities and assets. Okay, so if the bank calls back all collateral, right, and gold is no longer the collateral, it calls back everything. Your house, your car, your gold, your silver, your digital assets, and anything you own are not safe. Remember the words, all persons. So what do you do? Interestingly, just as an observation for entertainment purposes, Mr. Poole, who's a riddler, a famous riddler on Twitter, has the word trust in big letters. Now, is he saying to trust somebody, or is he saying that perhaps people need to look into a trust, right? But I'm not sure what it means, but it's very interesting and entertaining that the riddlers would post this in big structure, in a big writing. Interestingly, we know that Ripple actually acquired multiple trusts. They acquired Fortress, Medico, amongst other things, trusts. And you can see that Medico is actually a Swiss digital assets custody firm. So a lot of the big bankers and a lot of the big institutions are making moves on trusts. We know that, interestingly, the Bitcoin ETF was a trust, and all the ETFs were trusts. So what's happening to these big players? What do they know, and why are they all putting their assets into a trust or acquiring trust? This is just a video for your reference about the elements of a trust, and the video is by New Titan 888. He talks about digital assets as inheritable property trust and real estate planning or estate planning. So check out that for more details. That's the video done and dusted. As I said, do check out The Great Taking, and just be mindful of what's happening in the world at this time. So stay safe, hold the coins. We're all going to make it in the end. Let us surf and ride through the Kali Yuga. And as always, have a good day.
Right.